In this world, there are heroes and there are villains. Heroes don't kill people. Here's your look at the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse, Black Adam, Hawkman. With a suit of armor constructed by gravity-defying nth metal, Hawkman combines his physical prowess with a strong sense of morality, instilling years of knowledge and experience into the younger members of the burgeoning Justice Society. The man known as Carter Hall has fought a millennia to protect global stability, and he won't let anything or anyone, including Black Adam, standing in his way. First, before we have a look at Hawkman, I'd like to thank the folks over at McFarlane Toys that did provide this sample that we could have a look at in this video. I'm including Hawkman's wings in this case, even though the wings are technically a separate piece when you take the figure out of the plastic prison. I did want to add the wings because likely most people are going to be displaying the figure with them. And I'm going to include that when we measure off just how tall Hawkman stands, because the wings are, after all, taller than the figure itself. If you wanted just to look at the figure itself, then, well, Hawkman would be only 6.5 inches. But if you include the wings, then it takes the figure closer to being about that 7-inch height, which works out to be a figure that's about 18 centimeters tall. Comparing Hawkman with a couple other figures we just recently had a look at, here's what he looks like next to the cloaked Black Adam. Can I get him to stand? Yes, I can. Yes, I can. And here's what he also looks like next to the recently looked at Dr. Fate. Other than obviously the fact that Carter Hall does have the wings and he has the feathers sticking out the top of his helmet, you know, figure-wise, they're all about the same size to one another. And it's actually a good thing also I brought back in Dr. Fate. There's one other thing I forgot to talk about in his review. And you know when you start thinking about one thing you wanted to mention to somebody, and then you kind of trail off and you start thinking of something else, and then you try to remember what that thing was that you were talking about? I realize now the reasoning why I was talking so much about why his shoulders being rubber like this being an issue. I noticed even just having the figures up like this, I had Dr. Fate just in a flight pose for a while, and when I had taken the arms back down, the shoulders were sort of warped like this. Now, they've gone back to a normal position, but that's one of the reasons why I think I wanted to mention the rubbery shoulders, and I sort of just trailed off. I was thinking of other things. But again, like that's what they look like figure-wise all to one another. The figure has a couple of strange things going for him. The first of which is the fact that he comes included only with a circular black standing stand. A character that has wings, but they don't actually include a flight stand with this figure. Now, I'm fine, being that I already have enough of these DC Multiverse figures, I can easily pull a flight stand from another figure that's not usually using one. But the figure, I think, should have come included with it. It's nice still that they include a DC logo stand, with the DC logo branded down below, and of course one singular peg. But again, in case like this for Hawkman, I really think the figure should have come included with a flight stand, not just a black stand instead. Moving that to the side, the figure also comes included with a trading card. The trading card, like cases before, we're going to bring back in the Dr. Fate trading card. Once again, they're illustrated. I like that. It's different, at least, than I'm just going to bring it back in the first Black Adam figure that we had a look at. Again, it's just a picture of The Rock. And then the one that came included with the cloak, hey, I've got a collection. This one was the illustration, and again, you got a couple of illustrated cards, so at least that's a nice way to break things up a little bit. Because I don't know if I would want to have had photos for all of the characters on the fronts of the cards. And of course, as you can see also as well, they keep consistent the color yellow as being the background on all four of them. For Hawkman's card, though, on the back of the card, does list his real name as Carter Hall with a small little paragraph read. Very easy for you to read, or you can also read it or just hear it at the beginning of this video. It's the same thing I read at the beginning. Gonna move that to the side. Figure, of course, comes included with a mace. I say of course, but I think to have not Hawkman come included with a mace would feel off, right? Because Hawkman always comes included with his mace, and thank goodness he actually comes with his nth metal mace. It does have the little spikes there on the end. It looks like it's been forged rather nicely. It's got all these cool little imperfections to the metal itself. Very, very neat looking design. You'll be happy to know that none of these will actually draw blood. I mean, they hurt well enough. I mean, if you were to kind of hold onto it like that or push it against someone's skin, then yeah, they'll definitely feel it. But they're not sharp enough, of course, to draw any bit of blood. The handle is nicely painted here in brown, while the majority, though, of the nth metal mace is all done here in a nice silver. This does fit into his hand, actually either one of his hands. Just go ahead and just pop this in right now. Just like that. Not only that, being in his hand, but also the wings on the back of his torso, you can also imagine that the figure is going to be a little more heavy. All the more reason why the figure comes include this, but all the more reason why I still think the figure couldn't have come include with a flight stand. I'm not going to talk too much more about that. The other thing that the figure is sort of strangely included with is wings. No, not the fact that he comes included with wings, but the way that they handled them. I'm going to go ahead and take the mace out of his hand. When you get the wings, they're actually obviously off the figure. They were separate in a tray. Just putting Hawkman here for a second, get him to stand. Getting him to stand here for a second. I just finished joking about the fact that these figures needed stands. Why is he not standing for me? You know what? Let's go ahead and get him onto space. I don't want to commit too much time actually just getting this figure, there we go, on the stand. As I mentioned, the figure comes included with these wings. Now, the wings themselves are nicely painted. They have the same matching browns and matching golds as kind of the majority of his armor. The weird thing about it, though, is the way they peg in place. They're only just pegs. They're not hinges. There are no hinges at all on this. So when you are putting them on the back of his body, why am I doing it like that? When you're putting them on the back of his body, these don't have the means to hinge back and forth, which seems a little strange. Going ahead and doing it right now, you can see there's the holes on the back of his body. You're literally just taking the wings and forcing them into those holes. I do the exact same thing on the other side. One thing it does at least grant you is that you can take the wings and hinge them outward. But you can only have them so far. First of all, you're going to have to move his head out of the way because these wings are going to be sticking out. And obviously, the closer you bring them together, the closer quarters things are going to be. I really wish that they could have actually had these pegs be a little bit longer and have a hinge on them. So you could actually have hinged them outward. Because like right now, the only thing you could really do, I'm sure, is probably to heat the plastic. Might even just do that. Heat the plastic on the peg. Just bend it a little bit. So when I put it back into his body, the wings will be kind of back this way. I mean, you can kind of compensate for the fact you can kind of bring these back a little bit. But I really think that the wings themselves should have been on hinges. I'm going to put the stand out of the way. We can just hold the figure for the rest of this review. So, just getting these wings all the way in so they're not going to fall out for me. Getting a closer look, though, at Hawkman's face. Helmet obviously is not going to be removable. These wings on the sides of his helmet are sculpted nicely in gold and of a very soft plastic, which is probably a good thing, too, when it comes to moving his head back and forth. Gaining him, of course, clipping the sides of his wings. If these were a harder plastic, you'd have a harder time to actually move the head. The helmet is nicely handled, though. And again, you can see his face underneath. Got to wonder in the same way that we looked at Dr. Fate if there's a planned gold edition version of this figure down the road where they're going to give this guy an unhelmeted head sculpt. Because, of course, he is unhelmeted. At least from what we've seen of the trailer, he's both in his costume and he's without the helmet as well. But I like the helmet. That face sculpt is really handled well, too. You can see he's got his beard and painted nicely lips. You can even see, like, there's his eyes as well. The one eye, actually this eye right here, seems a little too closer to the socket of the helmet. But certainly not to the point where it looks like an eyesore. Oh, I see what I did there. As I mentioned already, though, the wings on the inside with all the cool feathers that they've sculpted in there are a very similar type of gold that they've used for the shoulders. Not quite the same, but it's a very similar type of gold. The gold is also here on the front bandolier of his belt, the strap that goes in front of his waist. And he's actually got a belt torso here. He's actually got some really cool gold that they've also put into the front section of his pants. Now, this part of the gold is actually lifted in the sense that it's not just painted onto the actual pants. I do like that they've actually sculpted this in rather than just simply painting onto the legs themselves. He's got some nice gold there also on his knees and some equally nice gold down below on the fronts of his boots. The backs of his boots actually bring in some additional kind of an off beige gray color, which is actually the same color that they used then for his torso. Now his torso, I'm just going to move his arms out of the way here for a second. His torso is a softer plastic. What they've likely done is taken an existing DC Multiverse figure body, I'm not sure really which one, and they probably would have then taken the softer overlaid suit and put it over top of it. This strap here that connects the two shoulder pads is soft, and actually they don't glue it in place. This part right here is the only part that's glued. This part right here as well. This section right here is completely loose, and they likely have done that when it comes to the articulation of the figure, that you can still move the torso, or upper torso at least, up and down, and that this isn't going to be permanently attached anywhere on the top of his body. Of course, he's got these nice little gauntlets on, he's got these large gauntlets on the sides of his arms, and he's got these cool little spikes that stick out the ends of his hands. Like, the coloring on this guy is really actually quite good. The only thing I would really say, though, for me, is I kind of wish, again, like the cape, the wings. The wings could have actually been attached differently than simply just plugging them in place. I think I might still, again, go and maybe heat the wings up a little bit. Just see if I can bend them back. Because I think I don't really want that have them too close to the body. I want to bring them back just a little bit. And I guess you probably could do that too, by just even bending the plastic just a little bit. But I think a hinge should have been added in there as well, instead of just simply the peg. For the articulation, though, on Hawkman, it's going to be a little harder to get around the wings. His head is on a ball joint, so you can rotate that all the way around. You can have the head looking down, and you can have it looking up. And you can also rock it back and forth as well. He actually has quite a lot of articulation for what you would imagine to be quite limited kind of environment, because he's got the wings on both the sides. He actually does have some pretty good articulation on the head. Again, if you are to get this guy onto a flight pose or a flight stand, I'm definitely going to have I think I'm going to do that for myself, because it seems so strange that the figure like this that has wings does not come included with a flight stand. But again, I already have a couple of the ones I can actually use from my collection. For the upper torso, like these shoulders, first of all, are loose and separate from the shoulders. So when it comes to moving the torso, nothing really does seem limited, other than the fact he's just got an encased body, like a bodysuit that's softer plastic over top of it. The arms do come out at a 90-degree angle bend, because again, like the shoulders are attached up here, not attached here, you're not going to have any real issues when it comes to moving the arms. And they move forward and back this way also as well. Here's a swivel at the bicep. The figure also does have a double hinge on the elbow, and Hawkman does have swivels in his hands, back and forth, back and forth. As for the legs are once again on ratcheted joints. You can see there's the ratchets working behind the scenes. You can bring the legs forward, bring the legs back. Not only is this top part soft plastic, but the lower part of his, the top of his pants are also a softer plastic there too. That hides the joint, but you just got to be careful, because every once in a while, I've noticed, for me at least, it's always on this side too. The top, or this part of the little plastic, gets caught inside. I always have to take a little bit of tweezers or even like my nail file and just kind of fish that back out. But the legs do split out. You get a good splits on Hawkman. You can take the legs and move forward and back. There's a mild swivel at the top of the thigh, more so the way the assembly of the figure comes together. Double hinge on the knee. There is no articulation here in the boot. Once again, it seems like they've actually just molded the lower half below the knee, and then just simply painted this part of his armor in the gold, but it's still part of the leg. So there's no independent swivel happening there. Feet also move back and forth this way, and there's a nice ankle pivot, and there's some decent toe articulation in there as well. Like the figure, my only criticism really, well, two of them. One of them is fixable. I guess technically both of them are fixable. The easiest one to fix is the fact the figure doesn't come included with a flight stand. I'm going to get back onto his display stand. The fact that the figure does not come included with a flight stand, I can easily fix by just using a flight stand that came included with another figure. And then the other one is just the fact that the figure's wings, like, why would they have not put a hinge on those wings? We've gotten lots of winged figures before, and generally the practice is, when it comes to wings, not only do you plug them onto the back of the torso, but you also you give them the means of actually being able to hinge backward, like if you wanted to have the wings pulled a little bit further back. Again, what I might end up just doing is taking the wings, submerging them in hot water, and just kind of bending back the peg just a little bit. So when it comes to actually displaying the figure, the wings are not going to be as close to his body. They're going to be a little bit further back. Other than that, that's just a little fix on my part. Other than that, though, other than those two little points, it turned out to be a great looking Hawkman. Here in final looks, I've actually got Hawkman on a flight stand. Full disclosure, the figure does not come included with a flight stand, but actually Dr. Fate picked up the spare. I end up using the stand that came included with that figure, and I'm just going to have to find another stand for Dr. Fate. I think rule of thumb is, if you have any figure that has wings, right away, a figure like that should come included with a flight stand. It's strange and puzzling to me, the fact that they would have just included a black display stand. Either way, though, the figure does need a display stand because of the back heaviness of adding those wings on the back of his torso. But right away, the figure should come included with a flight stand, because this is the way I'm going to definitely want to display Hawkman on my shelf. Well, thank goodness, at least he also comes included with his nth metal mace, and it does look quite cool in his hand. The figure has some really interesting colors that they've used here. A little bit of a departure than what we're used to seeing with Hawkman, although the colors are very accurate to what Hawkman's got a lot of greens, a lot of yellows, for example, and they've just simply modernized that, but not too far removed away from that it doesn't look like Hawkman. It still looks like Hawkman with his big giant wings on the back of his torso. It's still strange that his wings don't have hinges. I mean, again, you can always take those wings and pull them a little further away from his torso, so they're not as close to his body as they are right now. But I'm going to do one more to that. I'm going to once again heat those pegs. Just kind of bend them back a little bit so that the wings are a little bit more arched. that's the way I'm going to be displaying the figure for myself. But what do you guys think of Hawkman? He's a really neat looking figure, isn't he? Minus, yes, a flight stand. Minus, yes, hinges in his wings, but he still turned out to be a great looking figure. Let me know what you guys think of him down below in the comments section. And once again, a big thank you to the folks over at McFarlane Toys that did provide this sample of the new Black Adam Hawkman that we can have a look at in this video. If you enjoyed this review, why not hit it with a like? If you're loving the content you're seeing and certainly want to stick around for more, because after all, we are going to be looking at the rest of the Black Adam wave, then make sure you hit the subscribe button down below and turn on the bell notification. And while we have wrapped up right now the review for Carter Hall, there will be, of course, the reviews of the rest of the Black Adam wave, so making sure you're coming back to this channel on a regular basis. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.